Emma Harris had lived a life that many people dream of. A happy family with her husband, John, and 2 grown children, a stable job as a manager at a large company, and a charming house in the suburbs. Everything seemed perfect, like a serene picture that she had worked to build for over 20 years. But deep down, Emma felt that something was missing. Each day passed with her working, taking care of her family, and frequently participating in community activities that she felt obligated to do. However, with every passing day, Emma began to feel like a shadow floating through her own life. It wasn't because she lacked anything, it was simply the absence of passion, something she once had when she was younger. One autumn evening, Emma and her husband attended an art exhibition in the city center. She didn't expect much, just wanted to step out and breathe in some fresh air. She wasn't someone who particularly enjoyed art, but among the lively crowd, Emma found a bit of solace in the abstract paintings and quirky sculptures. It was a small change in her daily routine, but it felt like a little magic that temporarily helped her escape from the monotony of life. As they wandered through the exhibit, she noticed a man standing near a painting. He wasn't the kind of person who stood out in the way she thought artists did, but something about him caught her attention. He wore simple yet elegant clothes, had bright eyes, and a gaze that seemed deep, as though he had lived through many ups and downs in his life. He turned around, and their eyes met in a fleeting yet profound moment. Emma's heart skipped a beat, but she quickly turned away, reminding herself that this was just a chance encounter. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered. Just moments later, the man walked toward her, offering a gentle smile. "I think I've seen you staring at this painting for quite a while," he said, his voice deep and warm. Emma felt a bit flustered but responded, "Yes, I just feel there's something really special about it." "It's a painting about freedom and the unknown journey," he added, his gaze still fixed on Emma. And so they began to talk, first about the painting, then about the simple things in life. His name was Jack, a freelance artist who specialized in creating personal and metaphorical works. Their conversation lasted only a few minutes, but to Emma, it felt like an eternity. She felt like she was stepping into a new world, one that was completely different from her own, but at the same time, strangely familiar. The conversation ended when John, her husband, called out to her from a distance, and Emma hurriedly returned to him. But even as they walked back home, the strange feeling of curiosity and excitement lingered in her heart. Since then, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Jack. Not because he was an attractive man, but because of the way he made her feel, a woman completely different from the one she thought she was. He made her feel alive again, not just as a wife, a mother, or a middle-aged woman, but as someone who deserved to love and live fully. That thought made her uneasy, questioning whether her life had truly become nothing more than a routine, devoid of real passion. The days following the art exhibit felt strange for Emma. She couldn't quite shake the memory of Jack, the man who had made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. She told herself it was just a fleeting moment, an unusual connection that didn't mean anything. But each time she closed her eyes, his smile, the warmth in his voice, and the way he had looked at her lingered in her mind. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Emma was sipping tea in her kitchen when she received a message. It was from Jack. He had found her email address through a mutual acquaintance at the gallery and had sent a note. "I enjoyed our brief conversation at the exhibition. If you ever feel like discussing art or just talking about life, I'd love to continue where we left off." Emma hesitated before opening the message. She hadn't been expecting this, yet part of her felt a sense of relief that Jack had reached out. It wasn't as if she had been waiting for him to do so, but there was a spark inside her, a longing for something beyond the humdrum of daily life. She stared at the screen, wondering if replying would be a betrayal of the life she had worked so hard to build with John. After all, she was married. She had children, responsibilities, and a life that had been carefully arranged. But Jack's message felt like an invitation to rediscover a part of herself that had been buried for years. With a deep breath, Emma replied, "It was nice meeting you as well. I agree, it would be nice to continue our conversation sometime." The instant she hit send, a mixture of excitement and guilt washed over her. She didn't know what she was expecting, but the idea of reconnecting with Jack was exhilarating. Over the next few days, they exchanged a few more messages. The conversations were light-hearted at first, discussing everything from art to books to travel. But as time passed, Emma found herself looking forward to the exchanges more than she had anticipated. There was something refreshing about speaking with someone who saw her as more than just a wife and mother. With Jack, she was simply Emma, the woman with thoughts, dreams, and desires beyond her daily obligations. 2 weeks later, Jack invited Emma to meet for coffee. "I know a quiet cafe in the city," he wrote. "It's a place where we can talk without interruptions." Emma hesitated. Could she really go? Could she step away from her familiar life for a couple of hours, leaving behind the responsibilities of home? She debated with herself for hours. She could already hear John's voice in her head, asking where she was going, why she was meeting someone else. She could already feel the weight of judgment, the questioning of her commitment. But there was a part of her, small but growing, that wanted to break free from that judgment, to experience something new, something that made her feel alive. In the end, Emma decided to go. She told John she had a quick errand to run, and without looking back, she left. The cafe was tucked away on a quiet street in the city, far from the bustling crowds. When Emma walked in, she saw Jack sitting by the window, his eyes scanning through a book. He looked up and smiled as she approached. "Glad you could make it," he said, standing to greet her. Emma felt her heart skip a beat. This wasn't like any other encounter she had had in recent years. It was raw, unexpected, and thrilling. They ordered coffee, and the conversation began naturally, as if they had been friends for years rather than strangers meeting for the first time. They talked about art, literature, their childhoods, and their hopes for the future. Jack was witty, insightful, and easy to talk to. He listened intently when Emma spoke, something that she realized she hadn't experienced in a long time. At home, John listened to her, but it was often out of routine or necessity. Jack's attention felt genuine. He was interested in her, not just the role she played in her family. As the conversation flowed, Emma found herself sharing things she hadn't spoken about in years: her fears, her aspirations, the ways she had changed over time. She hadn't realized how much she had been holding in until now. Jack didn't judge her, he just listened, offering small observations or questions that made her think. Emma was conscious of the time. She knew she couldn't stay out forever, and the thought of returning home to her family loomed over her like a heavy cloud. But she wasn't ready to leave. There was a part of her that wanted to stay, to explore whatever this connection with Jack might be. Finally, Jack broke the silence. "You have a beautiful way of looking at the world," he said softly. "You know that, don't you?" Emma blushed, feeling a warmth spread across her cheeks. "I don't know," she murmured, unsure of how to respond. "It's just, life has been so predictable lately." "That's why it's so nice to talk to you," Jack continued. "You remind me that there's always more to discover, even in the simplest things." Emma didn't know what to say. She felt both elated and conflicted, as if she were walking a tightrope. The temptation to stay, to lean into the excitement she felt, was strong. But she also knew that returning to her life, to her responsibilities, was important. It was her duty. "I should probably head back," Emma said reluctantly, glancing at her watch. Jack nodded, his smile softening. "Of course. But I'm glad we did this. Let's not let it be the last time." Emma smiled faintly. "I'd like that." As she left the cafe, Emma felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. She was excited about the connection she had with Jack, but she was also weighed down by the reality of her life at home. She knew she couldn't ignore her family forever, but a part of her wanted to keep this new feeling alive, to explore it further. The days that followed Emma's coffee date with Jack were filled with a whirlwind of emotions she hadn't expected. On the surface, everything appeared normal. She woke up every morning, made breakfast for her family, sent the kids off to work, and went about her daily routine. But beneath the calm exterior, Emma felt a storm brewing inside her. Each time she saw Jack's name appear on her phone, her heart raced. The texts, though few, felt like an escape, a momentary break from the monotony. His words were thoughtful, kind, and unexpectedly profound, and they seemed to strike a chord with something deep inside her. It wasn't just the thrill of a new connection, it was the realization that she had been starved for attention, for validation, for someone who saw her as more than just a wife and mother. At home, things were fine. John was as dependable as ever, though there was a sense of distance between them that Emma couldn't quite ignore. Their conversations had become routine, what the kids were up to, what needed to be done around the house, or the latest news. There was no real spark anymore, no excitement, no deep connection. She loved him, but she felt like they were coexisting rather than thriving together. One evening, after dinner, Emma sat down with John to watch a movie. It had been their routine for years, snuggling up on the couch, trying to enjoy a rare quiet moment. But tonight, something was different. Her mind kept drifting back to Jack. His smile. His easy laughter. The way he made her feel seen. Emma. John's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Are you okay? Emma blinked, realizing she had been zoning out for longer than she thought. Yeah, just tired, she said quickly, forcing a smile. Long day. John nodded and returned his attention to the screen, but Emma could feel the tension between them. It wasn't that John had done anything wrong, it was just that she was feeling restless. There was something she wasn't saying, something she couldn't put into words. Later that night, as she lay in bed, Emma couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, her thoughts swirling. Was it possible that this connection with Jack was just a temporary escape? Was she just looking for something to reignite the passion she hadn't felt in years? Or was this the beginning of something more? Something she couldn't ignore? The following week, Jack invited her to a gallery opening. It was a small event, but he had asked her to come specifically, saying he'd love to continue their conversations. Emma hesitated. She told herself it was just another social outing, nothing more than a chance to look at some art. But deep down, she knew that the invitation meant something more to her. The thought of seeing Jack again, of feeling that spark reignite, was both exhilarating and terrifying. I should go, Emma whispered to herself, sitting at her vanity, applying her makeup. Her hands trembled slightly, a mix of nerves and excitement. She wasn't sure what she was hoping for, but she knew she had to see Jack again. She couldn't stop thinking about him. When she arrived at the gallery, Jack was waiting for her near the entrance. He greeted her with a warm smile, and for a moment, everything else faded away. They wandered through the exhibit, casually discussing the art, but it was clear that the real connection was happening between them. The chemistry was undeniable. As the evening wore on, they found a quiet corner to talk. Emma could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she listened to Jack talk about his latest work. He had such a passionate way of speaking, his eyes lighting up with every new idea. He was so different from John, so vibrant, so alive. And for the first time in a long while, Emma felt alive too. I'm glad you came, Jack said, his voice low and sincere. I feel like we could talk forever. Emma smiled, her cheeks flushing. Me too, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I've never met anyone quite like you. There it was. The truth, finally. She was drawn to him, not just physically, but emotionally. There was something about Jack that made her feel seen, heard, and appreciated in a way that John hadn't in years. But it was complicated. She was married. She had a family. What was she doing here, standing in this gallery, feeling a connection to someone other than her husband? Jack seemed to sense the tension in the air. He paused and looked at her intently. I'm not trying to rush you, Emma. I just enjoy spending time with you. If you don't feel the same, I understand. Emma felt a pang of guilt. How could she admit that she felt the same? How could she admit that this fleeting beautiful connection, meant more to her than she was willing to admit? I do feel the same, Emma finally confessed, her voice trembling. But I'm married, Jack. I have a family. I can't just walk away from that. Jack nodded slowly, his expression softening. I don't want to make things complicated. I just wanted to be honest with you. I enjoy being around you, and I'd like to see where this could go. But I understand if you can't. Emma's heart ached. She knew he was right. This wasn't something that could be rushed, and it wasn't fair to her family. But she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward Jack. The days that followed Emma's gallery visit with Jack were filled with confusion and guilt. She couldn't stop thinking about him, about the way he made her feel alive again. But every time she glanced at John, her husband, the man who had been by her side for over 2 decades, she felt a wave of shame wash over her. How could she be contemplating this? How could she even consider pursuing a connection with someone else when she had a family to care for? It was late one night when Emma found herself standing at the kitchen counter, making a cup of tea. The house was quiet, John had gone to bed early, and the kids were away visiting their grandparents for the weekend. It was the first time in weeks that Emma had a moment to herself, to truly think about everything that had happened. Her phone buzzed on the countertop, and she glanced at it absent-mindedly. It was a message from Jack. I can't stop thinking about you, Emma. I hope I haven't overstepped by saying this, but I feel like there's something real between us. Emma stared at the message, her heart racing. She had been dreading this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to do. She had felt the same way. Since that first meeting, there had been a magnetic pull between them, a connection that neither of them could deny. But this was more than just a fleeting attraction. Jack had become a part of her thoughts, her desires. And she was terrified of what that meant. She put the phone down, staring at it as if it were a puzzle she couldn't solve. Her mind raced. Was it just infatuation? Was it simply the fact that Jack was new, exciting, and different? Or was there something deeper, something she couldn't ignore? The truth was, Emma didn't know. But she knew she couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when she felt so torn inside. She couldn't keep going through the motions of her life, pretending that the feelings she had for Jack weren't real. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. John appeared at the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice soft and groggy. He hadn't seen her this quiet in days. Emma froze, the weight of the situation pressing down on her chest. She quickly grabbed the phone and slipped it into her pocket, though the guilt was unmistakable. "Yes," she said, forcing a smile. "Just thinking." John walked over to the counter, his face filled with concern. "About what?" She shook her head, not trusting herself to speak the truth. "Just life, I guess. You know, work, the kids. All of it." John nodded, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of recognition, as if he knew there was more to her silence. "You've been distant lately," he said gently, his tone not accusing but tinged with sadness. I want you to know that I'm here for you, okay? Whatever it is." Emma felt a pang of sorrow. She loved John. He had been her partner, her confidant, for so many years. But the connection between them had weakened, dulled by the routine of their life together. The affection was still there, but it was buried under layers of time and obligation. Jack, on the other hand, had brought a spark, a sense of possibility that she hadn't felt in years. "I'm fine," she lied, her voice barely above a whisper. John didn't press further. He reached out and touched her shoulder. "I'll make us some breakfast tomorrow, okay?" he said, before walking back to their bedroom. Emma stood still for a moment, staring at the place where he had been. She knew that John was trying. He always had, and she had appreciated it for so long. But now, as she stood there, her heart felt torn in two directions, one leading her toward the life she had always known, and the other toward the uncertain thrill of what Jack represented. The next day, Emma met Jack again. This time, he invited her to a small cafe near the park. The place was quiet, intimate, with soft jazz music playing in the background. When Emma arrived, she saw him waiting by the window, a warm smile on his face. As they sat down, the tension between them was palpable. Jack's eyes searched hers, as if trying to read her mind. "I can see it," he said softly. "You're conflicted." Emma swallowed hard, unsure of how to respond. "I'm just not sure what I want anymore," she admitted, her voice shaky. "I've been married for a long time. My life is here. But when I'm with you, I feel something different. Something that I haven't felt in years." Jack's expression softened, and he reached across the table, his hand resting gently on hers. "I'm not trying to force anything on you, Emma," he said quietly. "But you deserve to feel alive. You deserve to be happy. Don't let fear hold you back from that." His words hit her like a wave, and for a moment, she felt a strange sense of peace. It was as if Jack had given her permission to feel what she had been too afraid to admit. But at the same time, it only deepened her sense of guilt. Could she really leave the life she had built with John for something new? Could she walk away from the stability, the familiarity, and the love that had always been there, even if it felt like it was fading? "I'm so confused," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. Jack's thumb gently brushed across the back of her hand, a gesture that felt both comforting and intimate. "I understand," he said. "But I think you owe it to yourself to be honest with your feelings. Don't live in the shadows of what you think you should do. Live in the truth of what you want." For the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to consider the possibility that she could change her life. That she could follow her heart, no matter how uncertain the path might be. The morning after her meeting with Jack, Emma woke to the sound of birds chirping outside her bedroom window. The early light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow on the room. But despite the peacefulness of the morning, her mind was in turmoil. She felt like she was standing at a crossroads, and no matter which path she chose, there would be consequences. Her mind kept replaying her conversation with Jack from the night before, his words echoing in her thoughts. You deserve to feel alive. You deserve to be happy. But could she really make a decision that would change the course of her entire life? She rolled over in bed, finding John lying next to her, still asleep. His face was peaceful, a stark contrast to the storm that was brewing inside her. For a moment, Emma felt a pang of guilt. John had always been there for her. They had built a life together. But the years of routine had slowly chipped away at the bond they once shared, and she found herself yearning for something more, something Jack had awakened in her. Am I really this unhappy? Emma whispered to herself, staring at the ceiling. Or am I just afraid of change? She needed clarity. She needed space to think, away from the expectations, away from everyone. By mid-morning, Emma had made up her mind. She needed to take a step back from everything to gain perspective. She needed time to think, real time, not just a few stolen hours between responsibilities. The idea of leaving for a while scared her, but deep down, she knew it was the only way to make an informed decision about what she truly wanted. That afternoon, Emma packed a small bag and told John she was going for a walk in the park to clear her mind. John, ever the supportive husband, simply nodded, though she noticed a flicker of concern in his eyes. He didn't ask too many questions, he never did. Emma wasn't sure if it was because he trusted her or if he was simply too accustomed to her emotional distance. Either way, she was thankful for it, because she needed this time away from him, from their life, to really think. She drove to a small bed and breakfast about an hour outside the city. It was quiet, nestled on the edge of a forest, far enough away from the constant buzz of her daily life. The place was peaceful, offering her the silence she craved to reflect. As Emma unpacked her things in the small room, she gazed out of the window at the view of the surrounding woods. There was a stillness here that she hadn't felt in years, a quiet that felt almost foreign. She hadn't allowed herself to just sit and breathe in so long. Every day had been filled with noise, work, kids, chores, obligations. And now, with the quiet all around her, she could finally hear her own thoughts. After a few hours of walking in the woods, Emma sat on a bench by a small lake. The sun was beginning to dip behind the trees, and the sky was a soft pink, painting the water in delicate shades of lavender and gold. The world felt so far away, and yet she was acutely aware of her own inner conflict. Jack's face flashed in her mind again, and she couldn't help but feel the pull toward him. But with every thought of him came the guilt. The guilt of betraying her family. Of questioning her marriage. Was this just a fleeting infatuation, or was this something deeper? It wasn't until the sun had set and the stars began to twinkle in the sky that Emma felt a sense of clarity start to settle within her. The truth was, she had been suffocating. She had been living a life dictated by obligation rather than desire. She loved John, but their connection had faded into something safe, comfortable, predictable. She had spent so many years taking care of everyone else, her children, her career, her household, that she had forgotten about herself, forgotten about what she needed to feel truly alive. And Jack, with his passion, his warmth, had reminded her of that part of her, the part that had been buried under years of routine. But the question still remained, could she really leave behind everything she knew to pursue something new, something uncertain? As the cool night air wrapped around her, Emma finally understood the answer. She wasn't ready to leave her family. She loved them, and she wasn't willing to destroy what they had built together. But she also couldn't ignore the feelings she had for Jack, and she couldn't pretend that she didn't deserve to explore what those feelings meant. I don't have to choose one or the other, Emma whispered to herself. I just need to find balance. I need to find a way to live for myself too. She wasn't ready to walk away from her marriage, but she also wasn't ready to lose herself in the process. The solution wasn't about choosing one life over another, it was about carving out space for herself. She had to learn to be Emma again, not just a wife and mother. She had to learn to set boundaries, to pursue her passions, to follow her heart without guilt. Emma smiled softly, feeling the weight lift off her shoulders. She didn't have to have all the answers right now. But at least she knew what direction she needed to move in. It was time to take control of her own happiness, without fear of what others might think. Emma returned home with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in months, but it was a fleeting feeling. The clarity she had found in the quiet of the bed and breakfast was slowly fading as she settled back into her daily routine. The moment she stepped back into her house, it felt like everything rushed back, the weight of her responsibilities, the expectations, and the underlying tension she had been trying to ignore. John was there, as expected, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee in his hands. He greeted her with a warm smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. The distance between them had become so palpable, so undeniable. Emma had sensed it for a while now, but it was harder to ignore after her time away. "How was your trip?" John asked, his voice calm, though there was an edge of concern underneath. "It was good. Really quiet." "I needed the time to think," Emma replied, smiling faintly. She set her bag down and walked over to the counter, her hands trembling slightly. She had been avoiding this moment, the moment when she had to face the reality of what was happening between them. The moment when she had to confront the truth, not just about her feelings for Jack, but about her marriage. "You look different," John said after a moment, his eyes studying her. "More relaxed, maybe?" Emma nodded. "I guess I am. I had some time to think about things. I think I've just been lost in everything for a while." John's brow furrowed. "Lost in what?" Emma hesitated. Her mind raced, the words she had rehearsed on the drive home now feeling inadequate. How could she explain what had been building inside her? How could she put into words the internal conflict that had been tearing her apart for weeks? "I don't know," Emma said, her voice soft. "I've just been going through the motions, I guess. I've been so focused on everyone else, on you, on the kids, on everything, that I forgot about myself." John's expression softened, and for a moment, Emma saw the man she had married. But it was fleeting. There was something in his eyes, a hint of sadness or maybe resignation, that made Emma's heart ache. "I don't want to lose you, Emma," John said quietly. "I don't want us to drift apart like this." Emma stood there for a long moment, her heart heavy with guilt. She knew what John was saying, and she knew it was true. She didn't want to lose him either. But she also couldn't deny the way she felt, how Jack had made her feel alive again, in ways she hadn't known she was missing. She couldn't ignore the fact that the connection between them was real, undeniable. "I don't want to lose you either," Emma finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I need to be honest with you. I've been feeling like something's missing. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do." John looked up at her, confusion and hurt flashing across his face. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Emma took a deep breath, then let the words spill out before she could stop them. "I met someone. Someone who made me realize that I've been neglecting myself, neglecting what I want. And I don't know what that means for us, but I need you to understand that it's not about you. It's about me. I'm lost, John. I don't know who I am anymore, and I need to figure that out." There was a long silence between them. Emma felt her chest tighten as she waited for his response, dreading the pain she knew she had just caused. But John didn't yell, didn't get angry. He just sat there, his hands gripping his coffee cup so tightly his knuckles whitened. "I don't know what to say, Emma," he finally said, his voice low. "I didn't see this coming. I thought we were fine. We've been through so much together. How did we get here?" Emma swallowed hard, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill over. "I don't know. I thought we were fine too. But we're not. And I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not. I need to figure out who I am again, John. I need to find my way back to myself." John stood up, his expression unreadable. He walked to the window and stared out at the yard for a long time, and Emma watched him, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing down on her. Finally, he turned to her. "I don't know what happens next, Emma. But I can't be in a marriage where you're not fully here with me. I can't do that. I'm not saying I want to give up on us, but I can't keep pretending that things are fine when they're not." Emma nodded, her throat tight. She had known that this was coming, that her honesty would have consequences. But she wasn't prepared for the hurt in John's eyes, the quiet devastation that lingered in his gaze. "I don't want to hurt you," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. "I just don't know what to do anymore." John sighed deeply, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of their years together had suddenly become too much to bear. "I don't either, Emma. I don't know what to do either." That night, Emma lay awake in bed, the silence between her and John deafening. She could feel the tension in the air, the distance between them now more palpable than ever. They both knew that their marriage was at a crossroads, but neither of them knew what to do next. As the hours passed, Emma's thoughts drifted back to Jack. The connection they shared was undeniable, but so were the consequences of pursuing it. She had never imagined that a simple meeting at an art exhibit would lead her here, standing on the edge of a life-changing decision. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the ache in her chest, but it was impossible. She was facing the hardest choice of her life: stay in the safe, familiar world she had known for so long, or take a leap into the unknown with Jack. The days after Emma's conversation with John felt like they moved in slow motion. Each moment was heavy with the weight of unspoken words, yet she couldn't seem to escape the tension that had settled between them. Emma had hoped that, after being honest with John, there would be some kind of relief, some clarity about where they were headed. But instead, she felt trapped in a limbo, unsure of how to navigate the mess she had created. John had withdrawn into himself, speaking only when necessary. He still took care of the household, still asked about the kids, but there was a distance between them that Emma couldn't bridge. It wasn't anger that she saw in his eyes, it was resignation, a kind of sadness that broke her heart every time she caught a glimpse of it. Emma knew she had to give him space, but the silence was unbearable. And with every passing day, she found herself thinking more about Jack, the warmth of his smile, the way he listened to her, the way he made her feel seen in ways that she hadn't felt in years. But in the midst of it all, Emma also realized something important. She had been avoiding the question that had lingered at the back of her mind for weeks: what do I truly want? She had been caught up in the whirlwind of emotion with Jack, in the excitement of something new, something that made her feel alive. But when she thought about the bigger picture, about her family, about her children, and about the values she had always held dear, Emma understood that she couldn't simply abandon everything she had worked for. She had responsibilities, commitments, and a deep love for the life she had built. She needed to find a way to reconcile her desires with her obligations. She needed to understand that her own happiness wasn't something that could be pursued at the expense of everything else. The question wasn't whether she could be with Jack, it was about how she could honor the relationships that truly mattered while still honoring herself. That weekend, Emma took a walk with her daughter, Sophie. The two of them walked along the tree-lined path near their home, the cool autumn air rustling the leaves. It was a quiet, peaceful moment, just the two of them, talking about everything and nothing. Emma had always cherished these moments with her children, and she realized that she had been so consumed with her own turmoil that she hadn't been present with them in the way she wanted to be. As they strolled, Sophie's voice broke through her thoughts. "Mom, are you okay?" Sophie asked, looking up at her with those wide, perceptive eyes that Emma had come to love. "You've seemed off lately." Emma smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from Sophie's face. "I'm just thinking about some things," she said, keeping her tone light. "But I'll be okay. How are you?" Sophie gave her a curious glance but didn't press further. Instead, she grinned. "I'm doing great. Just finishing up my science project, and trying not to let the chaos of school drive me crazy." Emma laughed, the sound warm and comforting in the cool afternoon. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that her daughter, in her own way, already knew something was wrong. That evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Emma sat down on the couch, her thoughts drifting back to the conversation she had had with John. She hadn't realized how much she had taken their life together for granted, how easy it had been to slip into a routine that had eventually suffocated them both. But now, the thought of losing what they had built seemed unbearable. And yet, the reality was that things couldn't go back to the way they were before. She couldn't unknow what she had learned about herself, about her own desires and needs. But she also couldn't ignore her love for John, or the life they had created together. With a deep sigh, Emma stood up and walked over to the window. The night was dark, the lights of the neighborhood flickering softly in the distance. She thought about Jack, about how much he had made her feel seen and alive. But she also thought about her family, about the foundation of love and commitment she had with John. "I can't have it all," she whispered to herself. She had to make a choice. The next day, Emma sat down with John to talk. The conversation had been a long time coming, but she knew it was the only way to move forward. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the weight of the moment heavy between them. Emma could see the exhaustion in John's eyes, the deep sadness that mirrored her own. "I've been thinking a lot," Emma began, her voice steady but quiet. "About us. About everything." John nodded, his face unreadable. "I've been thinking a lot too." "I don't want to lose you, John," Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. But I also can't keep living like I have been. I need to find a way to live for myself too. I've been so focused on taking care of everyone else that I've forgotten what it means to take care of me. John's eyes softened. I understand. I've been guilty of that too. But what does that mean, Emma? What do we do now? Emma took a deep breath. I don't want to throw everything away. Our family, our history. I don't want that. But I also can't ignore what I've been feeling. I think I need to step back from Jack. I need to figure out what I want without the distractions. John nodded, though there was a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. And what about us? What does that mean for our marriage? Emma hesitated, her heart aching. I think it means we have to work on us. Not just going through the motions, but really working on our relationship. I've been absent in a lot of ways, John. I need to be here. For you. For us. John's eyes softened, but there was still a sense of sadness. I want that too, Emma. But I need you to know, this can't be about just picking up where we left off. We have to be honest with each other, even when it's hard. I know, Emma said softly, her voice breaking. And I want to try. I do. I just need to figure out how. The weeks that followed Emma's conversation with John were filled with both discomfort and hope. They had decided to try and rebuild their marriage, to find a new way of being together, one that allowed both of them to be seen and heard. It wasn't easy. There were days when the weight of their past, the years of unspoken resentment, missed opportunities, and emotional distance, felt like it was too much to overcome. But there were also moments of quiet understanding, of tenderness, that made Emma believe that change was possible. John had made an effort. He started planning more date nights, and for the first time in a long while, they spent time talking, not about the kids, not about the house or their daily routines, but about themselves. They talked about their dreams, their regrets, and the things they still wanted to accomplish together. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And Emma? She began to understand something she hadn't fully grasped before, that she could still be a wife, a mother, and a woman with her own identity. She didn't have to sacrifice herself completely to be there for her family, but she also couldn't abandon them for the sake of her own desires. She needed to find a balance between the roles she had embraced for so many years and the woman she was still becoming. She enrolled in a painting class, something she had always wanted to do but had put off for years. Every Thursday evening, she spent a few hours in the studio, rediscovering her love for creativity. It wasn't much, but it was hers. And for the first time in ages, she felt a sense of joy that was solely her own. But even with these changes, there was still an ache in Emma's heart. She had stepped back from Jack, had given up the idea of pursuing something with him. The decision was painful, and at times, it felt like she had closed a door on a chapter that could have been something beautiful. But she knew it was the right decision. For now, she had to focus on the life she had, on her marriage, her family, and most importantly herself. One afternoon, Emma stood in the kitchen, preparing dinner as usual. The sound of laughter echoed from the living room, where John and the kids were playing a game. It was a rare moment of peace, one that felt fragile but real. As she stirred the sauce on the stove, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Jack. I hope you're doing well, Emma. I wanted to check in and see how you're feeling. I still think about our time together. If you ever want to talk, you know where to find me. Emma stared at the message for a long moment, her heart giving an involuntary flutter. She hadn't expected to hear from him again, and yet here he was, still a part of her thoughts, still a presence in her life. She felt a surge of emotion rise within her. The connection they had shared wasn't something she could easily forget. But she also knew that reaching out to him now would only complicate things. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Emma knew that this was the moment that would define how far she had come. She had worked so hard to rebuild what was broken, to find peace within her marriage and herself. She couldn't let the past pull her back into a world of uncertainty and temptation. Jack had given her the spark she needed to reconnect with herself, but that chapter needed to remain closed. Emma typed a response, her fingers moving with a kind of finality. I've thought a lot about what we shared, Jack. You've been an important part of my journey, and I will always cherish the connection we had. But I'm committed to my family now, and I need to focus on that. I hope you understand. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The reply came quickly, almost immediately. I understand, Emma. I'll always respect your decision. I hope you find the happiness you deserve. Emma exhaled, the weight in her chest lifting slightly. She had made the right choice. She had let go of the part of her life that didn't belong to her anymore, and in doing so, she had protected the life she truly wanted to build. She felt a sense of calm wash over her, a quiet peace that had been absent for so long. The following months were filled with steady progress. Emma and John grew closer, finding new ways to connect, laugh, and share in their love for each other. They went on weekend trips, took up new hobbies together, and slowly, their relationship began to heal. It wasn't a perfect transformation, but it was real. They were learning to see each other again, to talk about the things that mattered, and to let go of the resentment that had built up over time. Emma also continued to explore her own passions. Her painting skills improved, and she even started to show her work at local galleries. It was a small step, but it was her step. She realized that she didn't need to choose between her roles as a wife, a mother, and an individual. She could be all of those things, and still, she could be Emma. One evening, as she sat on the porch with John, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Emma felt a profound sense of gratitude for everything she had. For her family, for the journey she had taken, and for the future that lay ahead. "Do you ever think about the past?" John asked, his voice quiet as he sipped his drink. "Sometimes," Emma replied, her gaze fixed on the setting sun. "But not in the way I used to. I used to think I'd made so many mistakes. But now I see that they were part of the journey. Every decision, every mistake, it all led me here." John smiled, his hand reaching for hers. "I'm glad you're here," he said softly. Emma squeezed his hand, her heart full. "I'm glad too." And in that moment, Emma realized that the life she had now, the one that had seemed so simple and safe, was the life she had fought for, the life she had earned. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. It was everything she needed, and everything she had ever wanted.